Today, we are going to discuss to you about the science, technology, and nation building. Contents. The contents of our report includes pre-colonial, colonial period, which also is subdivided into three: Spanish era, American era, and World War II. Next is post-colonial, government policies, and the NRCP. By the end of the discussion, we must able to discuss the means of application of science and technology in the daily lives of the Filipinos during pre-colonial, colonial, and post-colonial period. Recon government policies that regulate science and technological contributions and evaluate the role of science and technology in building nation. The shaping of our nation today would not be possible without the influences of science and technological developments and inventions. Through these developments and innovations, the enhancements and advancements in many different aspects will be applied: economy, health, business, the overall living of the people, and etc.
Scientific and technological development in the Philippines began in the pre-colonial period. Even before the Spaniards came to the Philippine Islands, early Filipino settlers were already aware of planting crops to provide food for themselves, taking care of animals, and using the certain plants and herbs as medicines. The native people also utilized the movements of heavenly bodies to predict seasons and climate. They achieved a technically challenging feat when they created rice terraces by hand. Through these rice terraces in freezing weather, the people were able to plant crops on the mountain sides. The Spanish also contributed the field of engineering in the islands by building houses, tools development, music instruments, and an irrigation system that uses water from the forest and mountain tops to achieve an elaborate farming system.
Colonial period is divided into three eras, which is the Spanish era, American era, and the World War II.
Colonial period. Colonization by Spaniards provide Philippines with modern means of constructing buildings, churches, roads, bridges, and forts. Spaniards built some engineering skills like Catholic churches located in different areas of the Philippines. So Spanish introduced a formal education and they also brought their cultures in the Philippines. They established a school for girls and boys and introduced the concept of subject and discipline. It was the beginning of science and technology.
Colonial period of the Philippines, 1898 to 1946. The United States government was in charge of providing education in the Philippines. Public system of education became a very important issue for the United States colonial government, since it's allowed to spread their cultural values, particularly the English language, to the Filipino people. Instruction in English language and American history lead to forming of a national identity and Filipino nationalism. In some cases, those students who excelled academically were sent to the US to continue their studies and to become experts in their desired fields of professions. They were called scholars and pensionados.
For Manila, capital of the Philippines, in the waning months of the war, like the rape of Nanking or the siege of Stalingrad. The tragedy of Manila deserves far greater understanding and reflection today. James M. Scott remedies that gap with Rampage, MacArthur, Yamashita, and the Battle of Manila, the first comprehensive account of one of the darkest chapters of the Pacific War. It is powerful narrative history, one almost too painful to read in places but impossible to put down.
The post-colonial era refers to the period after World War II, That was in 1946 when the US formally recognized the independence of the Republic of the Philippines. So in 1946, the Bureau of Science was replaced by the Institute of Science. In a report by the US Economic Survey to the Philippines in 1950, there is a lack of basic information which were necessities to the country's industries, lack of support of experimental work, and minimal budget for scientific research, and low salaries of scientists employed by the government. In 1958, during the regime of President Carlos P. Garcia, the Philippine Congress passed the Science Act of 1958, which established the National Science Development Board. And one of the presidents who pursued the advancement in science and technology was former President Ferdinand Marcos. Under his terms, many agencies in science and technology were established and strengthened. The 1973 Constitution was the first to put science and technology as a priority of the government. But before that, he created the National Grains Authority in 1972 and reconstituted in 1981 and became the National Food Authority to broaden its functions and powers. The Masagana 99 program, or the M99, which aims to raise the yield per hectare of palay cropland from a national average of about 40 kavans per hectare to 99 kavans per hectare. To achieve this goal, the program offers a package of technology to the farmers in the form of high-yielding variety seeds, subsidized fertilizer, low-price pesticides, herbicides, and others. After the Marcos administration, all the succeeding secretaries of agriculture continued to promote and popularize the package of modern technology, which are the irrigation, good seeds, fertilizers, integrated pest management, and grain dryers. He also created the PAGASA, or the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration. The Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Science Act of 1972 is necessary for the successful prosecution of the government's program to mitigate or reduce the losses of life, property, and the economy of the Philippines occasioned by typhoons, floods, drought, and other destructive weather disturbances, and also to provide protection against natural calamities and utilize scientific knowledge as an effective instrument to ensure the safety, well-being, and economic security of all the people and for promotion of national progress. In 1979, he created the Health Sciences Center. In 1980, he created the National Committee on Geological Sciences. In 1982, he reorganized the National Science Development Board into the National Science and Technology Authority, which Cory replaced with the Department of Science and Technology in 1986. He also established research centers, public science high schools, and increased the salaries of teachers in said high schools to encourage interest in STEM fields. He also created the LRT Line 1. The first half of it is from Baclaran to Central Terminal in 1984, and the second half in 1985 from Central Terminal to Monumento.
Because of the science and technological advancements and the government launch programs, projects, and policies that will regulate the activities of these science-oriented projects to ensure the safety of everyone. DOST, or the NRCP, studied how can the country, which is the Philippines, meet the underlying expected goals of the ASEAN in the year 2015. NRCP has 4 clusters of classification of the NRCP policies. First is the social sciences, humanities, education, internal policies, and governance. Next, physics, engineering, industrial research, earth and space sciences, and mathematics. The third one is the medical, chemical, and the pharmaceutical sciences. And the last is biological sciences, agriculture, and forestry. Through the help of science and technological advancements, the lives of the people were made easier and more convenient, especially in the field of medicine, in which vaccines and medicinal drugs were developed and enhanced through time. Hence, the development in science and technology assists the progress of one nation in becoming more advanced and flexible in facing global and local economic situations. That would be all. Thank you.